All right, so this is part two, ping pong ball. Um, in part one, I think I mentioned that I was like, "Oh, I'm well rested, so let's do it." Um, part two, not so much. I'm up early, out in the shop. It's before 5 o'clock. Still dark out. Um, we gotta do it, man. Gotta do it. All right, so the the premise, as I wrote out in my initial article, is basically using a soccer analogy and saying, okay, all of humanity is on a big soccer field, right? You can picture like all of humanity, all 8 billion of us or whatever, are standing in California, and we have to walk as a team in order to get to sustainability. We have to move as a team from California to the East Coast to the DMV, right? And basically saying, okay, by nature we're a travel team, so we got to make some cuts. So we cut on the right, cut the people that are just not willing to do anything. You know, saying it's not real, saying God's in control, so we don't have to do anything. Whatever the reason is for like, hey, I'm not willing to change my lifestyle or make any sacrifice, like they're cut. All right. And then on the left, the people that are just insist that we gotta overhaul everything. We gotta go 100% renewable. To me, it's like I think there are certainly aspects of our society that could use a good progressive push. You know what I mean? And I'm for it in certain aspects, but in something as vital as the climate and our resources, it's like perfect really is the enemy of the good, I think. So anyone who's like, yeah, we got to overhaul everything, um, I say it's kind of like people that insist the goals in Hawaii when the goals really on the East Coast, like they're cut. All right, so that leaves what I would say maybe 70% of us, right? 5 billion people, let's say. Kids are in. So all 70% of the people are reasonable, right? And could come to can understand that like, okay, we don't need a perfect solution. We just need a workable solution where we can move as a team, from California to the DMV across the field. All right, so within that, I think it's worth asking or thinking about what is the biggest cultural divide between the people that are trying to move together, right? If this is like the moral cultural divide. And I think a lot of times in the US it's like, oh, the divides between black and white, so people try to stoke the black and white stuff. But the globally I think the biggest cultural divide is between East and West. And I'm a little bit of two minds about it because I kind of have this nice thought out, like, well, the in the West, the morals come from, you know, outside of you. It's essentially the God of Abraham. That's like, here are the morals. This is what you should do. Whereas the East is more like, oh, well, the wisdom comes from within. It's like tune into the Tao. You'll know what the deal is. And generally, I think that holds true, right? And like basically, the solution I'm proposing or the way in which we can move that I'm proposing adheres to both, right? The month of rest is kind of like the day of rest. You're just extending the rhythm out, instead of the Sabbath being the last day of the week, it becomes like the first month of the year. And whereas in the East, I think it's like, it aligns with nature. Bears hibernate, whatever you want to use. You can't go. You got to rest. But in reality, I think East and West are not really separate. Like, I mean, I just use one example. The high school that I went to was, we joked it was like United Nations. You know what I mean? Like it was, everybody was there. Including people from every country in Asia. And now, I went to high school a while ago. So it's not, I don't think it's really, while in theory, I like the East West kind of divide. And I think I've had my own experience where I had physical pain that Western medicine or Western doctors couldn't diagnose. So I turned towards Eastern thought, and that kind of sent me on this kind of journey into understanding kind of East and West. And I would thinking it through, like which one's right. Is the source from the outside or is the source from the inside? And kind of trying to get that rhythm, you know what I mean? Like which one's right? Where do they meet? And I think there is a place where, geopolitically, we're not going to solve the climate crisis until, the US and China come together on something, right? Or can agree on something. My essential argument is, when you play ping pong, right? Of course, it's fun to play games. You try to beat the other person. It's a competition, right? But in my experience, and I, like a lot of people, came up playing a lot of ping pong in the summer, you're not always playing a game, right? Like you're not always trying to beat the other person. A lot of the times it's just the hitting around, passing the day. I think when you're doing just the hitting around, that's really where the magic of ping pong is, right? It's like all right, we're hitting together, but like I'm not really trying to beat you. I'm trying to get a good rally going, right? And like that's, to me, like that's really where the magic is where the two of you are starting to kind of play together. And I think that there is a weakness to the Western way of looking at the world, where the morality and the wisdom comes from an external source, and the big weakness of that is that you're susceptible to somebody coming along and claiming to be the interpreter of those rules, and even when it's painfully obvious that the interpreter of those rules is essentially a false prophet, right? You're susceptible to that. Whereas I think in the more Eastern way of looking at the world, where everything's relative, there's no one source. Everything, well, let's hear somebody else's point of view. Now, real quick, like, what do you think about it? We got to incorporate what homie thinks, and we got to see what she thinks, and then we'll just, oh yeah, that's a good point. Let's rethink this. In something like the climate, that is infinitely complex, you'll never make a decision. And I think we have that going on in the world now, where there's just no decision made. And what I'm saying is, there is a balance between East and West in the climate that comes from the God of Abraham. And you can say, oh, that's impossible. Like, God of Abraham doesn't talk to anybody anymore. And you can only think that if you're in the middle of an episode, right? Okay. But like, fact remains, we haven't started moving as a team yet, right? We haven't come together and said, all right, this is the direction we're going to move in, and we're not going to second guess it and change our mind. It's essentially like, it doesn't get rewritten every 4 years. It's no, what's the story of the people in which we're going to move across? And that's what I'm talking about here, where you're not trying to beat the other person. You're not trying to beat the other team. You're trying to get the rhythm right so that we can move in a positive direction. So that's part 2. All right, peace.